Hi guys, Jason West here. How you doing? So today I wanted to have a little chat with you about running webinars and perhaps more importantly, running a successful webinar. Because it's one thing doing a webinar, spending an hour and a half with people, but if you don't actually sell anything or generate a strategy call or whatever it is you're trying to do with that webinar, then it's completely pointless. So I just want to get you into my website. Here we go. Let's have a little look, or my Webinarjam account. And I'll show you what happened on a webinar that I've done recently. Let me just get this up here, by the way. Guys, if you want to try Webinarjam out, you might want to after I show you the statistics and how it works. But you can just go to bit.ly/one-try-Webinarjam. And you'll get a 60-day trial for like $1, and you can properly use it and try it out and then see if it's for you. So now then, here what you can see on the screen is the statistics. You get analytics with Webinarjam after running a webinar. And this was for one I did, like I say, in the last couple of weeks. And ignore the registration page visitors stat, because that's one thing that is it's a little bit odd in my opinion with Webinarjam. Is that the analytics for the registration page where people actually go to register to join the webinar, it counts them for like every webinar you've ever done of that type of webinar and puts them all into there. However, the stats to the right, these stats are for this one particular date that I ran the same webinar. So you can see here that we've got a show up rate of 30%. Now that's pretty good. Especially from a relatively cold audience. In fact, almost all of them were cold, and they were coming from Facebook ads. Normally, I'd like to see about 35% if I was mailing a list, which was already a little bit warm. And then the show up rate for the replay is pretty strong. I mean, look at that. 32.95% of the people who registered to watch the replay actually showed up and did it. 142 of them. So out of that 431 people who registered to watch it, we managed to get here, 274 people actually looking at the webinar. And also within Webinarjam, you get survey results, and it's worth doing a survey. As you can see, you don't exactly get millions of people fill it out. It's something that's asked on the thank you page of the webinar. Once they've registered, it goes to the, thank you, here's your URL to join in a week or a day or whatever it is. And would you mind completing this survey? And it's useful to do it. You can ask a few questions like, what's your target income? What's your biggest problem with this that you're trying to solve? So that it gives you a bit more an idea about the audience and helps you understand how you can best help them. So it's worth doing. Now we move on to what's going on inside the webinar. As you can see, this particular one was 1 hour and 54 minutes. And there is no right or wrong with webinar lengths. So a lot of people go, oh my God, you can't do a nearly 2-hour webinar. There's other people who, like Sam Ovens, I think one of his webinars is like nearly 3 hours long. And he still kills it with that. I've also done webinars that have lasted like 50 minutes of the presentation, 20 minutes explaining the course that I'm selling, and sold loads as well. So there is no right or wrong. Just go with the flow. And if you're doing it live, sometimes it's good to interact with people and things, and it may make it go longer. But if you're having a good time, if there's a good vibe between you and the audience, the attendees, and there's lots of to-ing and fro-ing and good questions are being asked, don't worry about it. Just let it go. Let it go. And then you've got stats here for engagement. So we can see there was a peak in this one of 107 attendees at 15 minutes in. There you go. You can see that on the stats just there. And then as you would expect, it gradually decreases. But to have 62% of these people stay till the very bitter end, until, you've done your pitch for your course, your product or service, and then, they've gone at the point you've ended the webinar, that is pretty high. That is not too bad at all. And in fact, even at 1 hour 30, there were still 88 people. I don't know what that is as a percentage, but it's still pretty high. And that was definitely at the point we were well explaining a product that we were selling. And then the webinar replay, I would fully expect to see this go down a little bit quicker, because people aren't quite so engaged on a replay. They know it's a replay, and there's no one there to interact with necessarily. You can set it on Webinarjam so that you see questions come through by email as they do it. And if you saw a real good buy-in signal question, like, oh, it's a 6-week course, but when do I start, or something like that, then you can immediately respond to them by email, which I recommend you do, because it can get those extra sales. And next, as we move down here, we've got the dropout rate. So this is interesting. What you can do look at this, and what you can gain from looking at this is when perhaps your presentation got a bit boring. Maybe you were laboring on about something, or it just wasn't resonating with your audience. So you might want to look at what you were doing, because you can go back and watch the replay. Go and look at 50 minutes and go and see, like, why did 10% of people leave at 50 minutes? Or in this case, at 40 minutes, 13% dropped out. So what happened then? What did you do? Did you do a boring slide? Did you do a demonstration or something that they weren't interested in? You've got to look at that. I would expect for people to drop out at this point, because this is where the sales stuff comes in, and some people will be just like, oh, I'm out of here. I can't even afford to buy anything, and they're gone. And then the webinar replay, you get the same sort of stats as two. And then you've got the offers clicked from live. So during a webinar, if you're familiar with webinars, you will at some point or another get them to take a call of action. That might be to buy a course or a product right there and then, or it might be to book a strategy call, whatever. But you can make the button appear within the webinar software, flash up with a timer, to get them to do something. So this is what we're seeing here, is we're seeing 69 people clicked the button to go and buy the product. And in the replay, only 6 people clicked. Then we've got the poll results. Have you ever tried selling on Amazon before? This was my question, and I had 60 votes. Now, I love polls, because polls not only give you a brilliant idea of what the crowd is that you've got on the webinar of that evening and how experienced they are, but it also encourages engagement and interactivity. And that, of course, is what, what gets people doing things and gets people taking action and buying. So it's good. And it keeps them engaged throughout the webinar. If you can put in multiple polls, people love to go over and get involved and click on the button. And here you've got the opportunity to download the chat history. Now, this is another big tip. The chat history is full of fantastic objections that you can answer in the next webinar. So people are going to ask you loads of questions in a webinar about your service, about whatever it is you're selling, and you may not have time to answer them in the webinar. So what you can do is to then go through it all afterwards and look for the common theme, look for the common questions that you're getting that you think, you know what, I need to put that in as a slide and answer that. So that's a really good way to look at common objections. Next, we've got the ratings. This will tell you if your webinar sucks. To be honest with you, it doesn't matter too much what people rate your webinar, as long as it is a profitable webinar. If people are ultimately buying your product, it doesn't really matter if you've only got 2 stars. I mean, nobody wants like a 4.5 or 5-star rated webinar that did such a good job of teaching, but it was dreadful at actually selling the service that you didn't make any money. So that's the whole point of the webinar, right? So at the end of the day, it's all very well having nice ratings, but you've also got to have the sales. But it is nice to look at those and just say, well, do you know what? People liked it. So the best situation is if they liked it and they bought your products or service. So next we come on to monetization. Now, this is interesting. So we've got registration fees here. Some people actually use Webinarjam to go ahead and charge people for teaching them something. So they will literally say, look, it's £20 a ticket, and you come to my webinar and I'll teach live, and then sell something else on the webinar. So not only do they get that, upfront money from people, but they also sell them something else higher price in the webinar. And I've heard that that can work quite well. You would get less people attend the webinar, of course you would. So it's a bit of a balance, but why not try it out? And then you can see the sales. So from my live webinar, we did 11 sales. These are all in pounds, by the way, guys. So We did £5,500 on the webinar, an 8.33% conversion rate, which is very healthy. You can live off that. If you're doing webinars, that's very, very good. And then from the replay room, we got another 3 sales, and that was 36 pence per click, earnings per click, £10.50 earnings per attendee, and so on. Another £1,500 of revenue and a 2.11%. So overall, you know, we managed to get over 10% conversion with that webinar, which is brilliant. Like I say, if you can do 10% all the time, then you've got a case for putting this onto Ever Webinar, which is to make it an automated webinar. So once again, if you want to try out Webinarjam, here's the link on the screen right now. It's just bit.ly/1try-Webinarjam, and just try it out for like 60 days. Give it a go. Now, just scrolling down here, you can see the notifications. It's very important to communicate with your people, let them know when the webinar is. And you can see this first one here, 403 emails sent, 188 opened, and 22 people clicked through. Now, I don't know why they clicked through, because obviously at that point the webinar wasn't live, but they were probably just experimenting, and they'll have gone to a holding page for the webinar. And then we've got the 24 hours before. I do another one 6 hours before. And then last minute reminders, I like to do a text message and also an email and try and get them that way. Because I also have the phone number field on the sign up to the webinar form. You'd be amazed how many people fill that out. A lot of people fill it out. They're not forced to, but a lot of people do. And then once they've gone to the thank you page for registering, they then get the option to get a text message alert. And then the replay, you might see that there is no email here to watch the replay. So how on earth am I doing that? How am I getting people to watch the replay if I'm not even telling them about the replay? Well, the answer is I am telling them, and I'm telling them from another place. So, yep, another place. And if you just scroll down here, let's have a look here. Yeah, like I say, replay, tell them about the replay. Where I'm telling them about the replay is actually from Kartra. So Kartra is the software that I use, the all-in-one marketing software. And now, once they've done the webinar, I'm handing them over to Kartra to give them a really strong post-webinar follow-up sequence, which has countdown timers, you know, reason to buy, details everything that was mentioned in the webinar. And if they didn't watch it, we send them to that replay, which is why if I scroll up here, my replay rate was so good. 62%, here we go. 32% of people I managed to get back to that replay. So the reason that that's so powerful is because obviously the more people who watch the replay, the more sales we get. And you can see just down here, we managed to gain another 3 sales, 1,500. So all in all, in good old US dollars, we did £9,000 actually, because I didn't count tax on there in those figures. And so that's like nearly $12,000 from one webinar. And I tend to do one of these every week. And also that brings me on to something else about courses. Quite often you see people do course launches and they make gazillions of dollars in one hit, but then they don't do anything else ever again with that course. So it's almost like a disposable product. They make a load of money, dish out tons to affiliates, almost half usually, spend a load on Facebook ads, and then they're left with nowhere near the amount that maybe got them their 2 Comma Club award, huh? That's just for money processed. Like if you do $1 million through a, you know, through one funnel, which by the way could be within 5 years to get that, as long as it goes through one funnel, then yeah, you know, and then they throw it away. So what I like to do is continuous webinars for the same course, the same product. And it also means that you keep interested and you keep invested in the well-being of your students who are already in the course, and you can keep helping them out. You don't lose interest and move on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. But anywho, rant over. That is the webinar tips of today and a bit rundown of how I do my webinars. If you want to cheat effectively and use my complete webinar funnel, which will be a registration page, all in Kartra, by the way. And if you want to try Kartra out, let me just switch over here and I'll give you the link for trying Kartra for, there you go, 14 days, $1 trial, bit.ly/one try Kartra. Give it a whirl because it is a fantastic bit of kit, and it will allow you to make custom registration page that work beautifully with Webinarjam and EverWebinar. And yeah, this is my funnel here. This is the very funnel that I use all the time for my webinars that get me results like the one that you just saw from like the other week. This is inaccurate now. It is actually more like a $500,000 webinar sales funnel. For me personally, of course, other people have used this funnel now and have started selling with it and making more. So in reality, it's probably double or triple that. But you can buy this funnel for $397, which is obviously a deal when you can see obviously how successful it can be. And then you can import it straight into your own Kartra account and have it up and running within hours. So a complete funnel with all the post follow-up emails, everything that I use, the kind of, the wording that I use, you just replace it with your product. And it will really help you sell more of your courses or your consulting, whatever it is that you want to sell. And so there it is. There's all the details about the actual funnel. And all that you can see here, look, so there's like a product in there, like that you would just adjust the price and the name of the product. List, you've got all your tagging done, your pages, your sequences, the form, for them to fill out. Everything's in there, all done, a help desk, all of that stuff, so that you can have a complete course selling system. And of course, you don't have to use it for courses. You can use it for other stuff too, but it's been sort of specifically worded and designed for courses. And let me just get that up on the screen for you right now. So the link to that is jasonwest.com/funnel shop. That is where you can access my website here. And then, yeah, the funnel shop's here. And then you can just find the webinar funnel at the top there. Is that one there? So I hope you found some value in this live today. I'm going to try and do these more regularly. It's quite good fun, actually. And, just try and give you as much value as I can and help you improve your businesses online and get more results. That's all I care about. Thanks very much. And I'll see you again real soon.